Episode 178, Adjusting to Normal Life Post-Mission with Brianna Stewart.
Welcome to Latter-day Life Coaches, the podcast where each episode is a conversation between me, Heather Rackham, and one of my amazing coach colleagues. Each coach here is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and a highly trained, experienced life coach making a great impact in the lives of their clients. And together, we have one main goal, helping you live your best life no matter what. You ready for this conversation with a coach? Here we go.
There is so much excitement and anticipation leading up to someone leaving and going on a mission. There is a mission call opening. There is a farewell. And before the missionary enters the mission field, there is a training center to help missionaries adjust to missionary life. But what about when they come back home? Where is the training center for helping them assimilate back into everyday life? Coach Brianna Stewart is on the podcast today talking about what many returned missionaries face upon returning home and the skills returned missionaries need to learn so that the transition from missionary life to normal life is one that keeps the returned missionary moving forward. If you are a returned missionary and find the transition to normal life difficult, reach out to Brianna and let her help you in this process. Mom and Dad, if you have a son or daughter struggling with normal life after a mission, Brianna is a great resource to help your child. Enjoy today's episode.
Hey friends, welcome to the podcast today. I am excited. I think this is going to be a good, timely conversation. There's going to be a lot of missionaries that are going to start coming home here in the next little bit, since a lot of missionaries tend to leave as soon as school's over. And Coach Brianna Stewart is with me today, and she works with missionaries. So anybody who knows somebody coming home from a mission or getting ready to leave on a mission even, send this to them or to their parents. But before we get started with that, I would love for Brianna, hello, by the way. I just get going and talking, but you are here, and I would love for you to introduce yourself.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I'm Brianna. I grew up in southern Utah in St. George. I currently live in a small town, Kanab, in southern Utah still.
Yeah.
I'm married and I have a little boy, a little 1.5-year-old boy, who is just the best thing ever. I've been coaching for about 3 years. I discovered it probably 6 years ago and just fell in love. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
I love it. Kanab is the town that I drive through on my way to St. George. I mean, not St. George, on my way to Lake Powell. Like, that's how I know Kanab is.
That's usually how it goes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, right before Lake Powell. Yep, that's us.
Yes. At the end of a very long drive for us, because we're coming from Idaho. So it's a long haul. But anyway, sorry, disrailing the conversation there. But so fun. And isn't it amazing? Like, I'm so happy that you have these tools in your life. Like, you're just starting with your children. And I found coaching when my kids, just before they were kind of like in the teenage years. And I was even just so grateful for what I had then, but I kept thinking, oh, I wish I had this knowledge and these tools when my kids were small. And I love that people are getting it earlier. I mean, it wasn't even around, right? It wasn't available to us. So love it.
Yeah, I've heard like one of the best ways to be a good parent is to, work on yourself. And so, and show up for yourself and do the work on yourself. And then you kind of naturally, it spills into other areas. So I am really grateful for that too. I think about that a lot, actually.
Yeah, I agree. And I actually have one of my kids have said that there was a distinctive difference when you started working on things for yourself, like the dynamic in our home changed. And I didn't need to hear that, but it was nice to know that, the efforts I was making were also having a trickle down effect. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay, good. Well, all right. Coming home from a mission, it's exciting, it's happy. I'm thinking, like, for parents, I know it's the thrilling time, but there can be a lot of negative emotions that come when a missionary returns to quote unquote normal life, right? Why do return missionaries experience a lot of negative emotions? Like, I'm certain there's fear and overwhelm and disconnect when they come home from a mission.
I think first of all, it's important to just look at what a mission is. I think sometimes, not meaning to, but we can make light as members of what it is because we're just so used to it. It's so normal, for us, but to the rest of the world, when when I would talk to people on my mission and they hear what we do, it's like mind-boggling to them. But you go out, you go by a different name. You're going by your last name, but you're almost like taking on a new identity. You're in a totally different place, different culture. I was stateside. I served my mission in South Carolina, but it felt like a different world, a totally different culture. You have, a companion you're with 24/7. Something my sister actually pointed out the other day is and I hadn't thought about this, but you don't really make decisions for yourself. Like a lot of things are kind of planned out for you, and you do, but it's more like, oh, what street should we knock? I don't know if they really knock anymore, but like, who should we contact? Which lesson should we teach? It's not, who am I going to marry? Like, what school am I going to go to? Like some of these big decisions, a lot of those are kind of decided for you. There's just like, you have a totally different purpose. There's just a lot of differences. Mm-hmm. And so when you come home, for me, there was like a grieving process. I had to almost grieve that life. And even though I was the same person, it felt like I was trying to fit into like my old self and take a lot of the things from my mission self, and create this like new person in a way. There's just a lot that goes into it, and the adjustment is drastic. Mm-hmm. So fast forward to now being home and you're dealing with all of this. I think something that maybe not a lot of people think about is on a mission, you feel like you have God with you like every step of the way. You have these spiritual experiences every day. And when you come home, it not that you don't have the Spirit with you, but it's just not quite the same. And you can kind of I felt like a little bit more alone. Mm-hmm. And I know other missionaries feel that too. And now you're starting to make big decisions. And it's not just for return missionaries. I think any young adult in that stage of life, you're ready to make some of these big decisions that are going to impact the rest of your life. And I know everyone says like, take your time with school, there's no rush, but you do feel like, I got to figure this out. I've got to figure out my life. And you have all these big decisions. And so for me and so many, it can be overwhelming, and there can be so much fear and anxiety and all of these emotions that come up from that experience. And what I've found is there are kind of two types of missionaries that come home. There are those who are feeling a lot of fear around trying to measure up with society's standards and kind of what they feel is expected of them. And I think even like church standards, because I know, like, I feel like in the church, we have some very successful high achievers,
Oh yeah.
in the church. So there can be that fear around that. And then there are those, I fall under this category, who don't even know what they want, don't even know where to start, and are terrified to like start the process. I put off school, like I didn't even want to think about that. And so those are kind of the two categories I see.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting because I'm sure on a mission, you're like every day is just purposeful, right? You know what your purpose is, you know what you're doing, and then you come home and that purpose there's still purpose, but it's different, and you're trying to figure out what that purpose is going to be, and those are really big decisions. So I can imagine that all of those emotions that we kind of think as being unpleasant and that we don't like are pretty heavy at that time.
And I don't point out those things too to say this is bad and we need to change how we do things or whatever, because I think it's okay that it's hard.
Right.
Life is hard. Yeah. But I just like to bring awareness to that. And I felt a lot of guilt around struggling, and it's okay to, it's okay to come home and struggle and have a hard time, and to take a step back and just recognize what you've done. And the adjustment you're going through. I think it's just good to kind of step back and understand, oh, it's okay to like struggle with this. And yeah.
It's really good to point that out, because you said you felt guilt, and that's just adding to the group of emotions that you don't like that you're experiencing. And if we could normalize it, that it's okay that you feel this way, that's going to alleviate that guilt or that shame that might come from even thinking that you shouldn't be feeling those things. And that is one less heavy emotion that you have to carry around with you and try to work through. So I'm glad you said that. And we need to continue to normalize that it's okay to feel that way.
Yeah.
All right. So since you're working with returned missionaries, well, you've already told us. You've told us that you served a mission, right? You said South Carolina?
South Carolina. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. I had a mission call and decided not to go the day before my mission farewell. Years ago, I ended up getting married a couple months later, but that's neither here nor there. But can you tell us your story a little bit and why dealing with those emotions kind of post-mission was hard for you? And maybe you've kind of addressed that a little bit, but could you share more?
So when I came home, I definitely struggled more than I thought, and it's so funny because I thought I was going to have my life just figured out. Just like a really simple example would be, I was always, for whatever reason, I have hated talking on the phone, like calling, insurance, or I don't know, just I get like so nervous. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, when I come home from my mission, this is going to be so easy. I'm not going to be scared. And I come home and I'm like, still like to call, anyone that's not a friend or whatever. I'm just like, oh my gosh. So I just thought I was going to have my life together. And so when I was struggling, I was like, what the heck is going on? I just did this really hard thing, and this should be easy for me. And I'll never forget, I was mopping and I was listening. My mom had just told me about Jody Moore and I was listening to her podcast, and I'll never forget, she said the words, our thoughts create our emotions. And that just struck me so hard, because I felt like in that moment, I was almost like a victim, and life was just happening to me. And in the church, we talk so much about being an agent, acting and not being acted upon. And I felt like I was just being acted upon, and fear was really dictating my life and some of these, negative emotions. And when I heard that, it was just such a relief, because it gave me hope that, like, I felt like that was the answer to like take some control over my life and what I did, and so and it kind of just took off from there.
Isn't it interesting? I mean, I'll interject really fast.
Yeah.
Just that we often, like, the agency piece is so big, because we've been taught that our whole lives, and I talk about that on here a lot, but we think it's more like towards our actions, like we're agents to choose what we're going to do. And we are, except for that piece starts so much earlier. We are agents to choose. We have the agency to choose what we are going to think. And yes, like there are a lot of things that influence what we're going to think, our religion, our, where we grew up. There's so many things that affect what we think, but we get to choose that. Yeah. And so our agency starts from the get-go right there. And what a gift that is. And especially, it sounds like you, and you pointed out it perfectly, is like, you just feel like you have so much power again when you realize that things aren't just happening to you that make you feel this way, that you can actually choose how you want to move forward.
Yeah. And just like the awareness, like I just started becoming aware of my thoughts. And for me, even that was a huge help, and like realizing how much of my thoughts were really creating my emotions and, the results I was getting. And so it really was just like that awareness alone, because I didn't Um, I wish I would have hired a coach, but that happened like a little bit down the road, but like that awareness was kind of the first step for me. And
Because even that is huge though, right? Just the
yeah,
awareness of it is so big and can make a big difference in and of itself.
yeah, totally. So that was kind of my path, and that really helped me a lot. Just hearing that, like there was a switch in my brain, and obviously I still struggled. I still struggle, but it was an exciting moment.
Well, I think part of that piece too in the awareness is just like what we're doing here today. We're having a conversation about it and offering people some new ways to think about it. And that is what shifts, that gives us options of things to choose
Yeah,
to think because
yeah,
our brain instantly goes to all the things that are not very helpful for us.
hmm,
And so just having conversations like this and offering people a different perspective is part of that whole process. Yeah, oh, I noticed that I think this, but I could choose to think this instead. And
yeah,
it's not that we're Pollyanna-ish-ing things, it's not like we're trying to be, positive or like toxically, I can't say the word, but it's not toxic positivity. It's just
yeah.
choosing things that are going to be most helpful for us.
Yes. Totally. And I appreciated my mission president. I remember him just talking about thoughts a little bit more for a second. He gave a training about thoughts and how thoughts, I wish I could remember the scripture, but it's something like, serve me with all your heart, might, mind, and strength. And he's like, we skip over the mind a lot.
Yeah.
But this is one of the hardest things to turn over to God. The natural man, like you were saying, our thoughts kind of naturally can go to things that are unhelpful for us, and it can take work. But yeah, we actually have power over that. And I'm glad he kind of started me on that journey,
Mhm.
very insightful man.
Yeah. Oh, I'm curious, like, is there conversation about this is going to be an adjustment when you get home from your mission? And I know it's going to be different for every missionary or every mission president, but is there any conversation about that to kind of help prepare you?
I feel like the adjustment to missionary life was talked about a lot more.
Uh-huh.
I remember one girl telling me, I had a friend that had come home, and I was talking to her about coming home, and she told me, this has been harder for me to adjust coming home than it was to adjust to my
Mm,
mission. And that was the first time I'd heard that, and I was like, I was about ready to come home, and I was like, okay, you're crazy.
yeah.
What? That was harder for you? You're home with your family. You've got all these comforts, that you don't have on your mission. You can take a nap whenever, and like that was harder for you. And so I'm actually really grateful she said that. Hindsight, I'm looking back at that because it kind of helped prepare me. But other than that, I didn't really expect it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know like what it's like for other missionaries but for me personally, I didn't expect it, and which is probably why it hit me in the face so hard
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
I wasn't fully prepared.
for sure. So anyway, I just was curious. What are some of the steps that you take your return missionaries through to help them move through those negative emotions they're feeling?
So I would say, first of all, and I know we've touched on this, is just the awareness.
Hmm.
In fact, I think that's kind of the most important part is like, first of all, being aware that it might even be a problem for you. I didn't even really understand that fear and some of these emotions were kind of dictating the decisions I was making and how I was living. And so creating awareness around that was the first step I kind of walk through, and then learning to like validate yourself as well through that.
Hmm.
The second part is learning to look at fear in a different light. Fear is not something to be afraid of. It's something that we need, like I think there's a purpose behind fear is what I'm trying to say. The problem is when it starts kind of becoming in charge or dictating your life and you're not, in charge of it. But fear isn't the problem. If a bear is running at me, I would hope I would have some fear around that, and that would cause me to run away. So learning to look at fear in a different way, which then helps you to really embrace it, which is the next step, which is like seems contradicting to a lot of people, but learning to embrace emotions, process emotions is, I think, one of the best things we as people can do. And so that's kind of my next step, is like really learning to embrace that and almost like welcome it in without resistance and allow it to be there and process through it. And then the fourth step, I guess, is learning to generate the emotions that you want to have. We know that our feelings drive the actions that we take. And so learning to generate emotions like motivation, self-confidence, drive can really propel you forward and help you to, accomplish what you want to do. So that's kind of the last thing, is learning to generate those emotions. And this is something that really excites me. I've been really diving into this topic. For me, like that first step was learning to create and generate these emotions through my thoughts, which is something I really focus on. But there are so many different tools in this area. So yeah, generating emotions is a really cool thing. The fact that we can generate whatever emotion we want is just so cool to me, so.
Yeah. It's like we're creators, and I don't think we ever look at it on that emotion level either. Like we have the ability to create emotion and make a huge difference in our lives and the lives of other people when we use that in a powerful, positive way.
I've never thought about it that way. So yeah, that's really cool. That's like one way we can create, is we create our emotions, which just like spills into other areas. So that's really cool.
Emotions, and I think the part, where you said to become aware and recognize what you're feeling, becoming well versed in emotions and being able to label them, is even just saying, oh, I'm feeling fear right now. Oh, I'm feeling this, or I want to feel this. Just even thinking that in our minds is so helpful. And I don't know, I just think it's the awareness piece, but also educating ourselves on emotions that we are feeling. We're pretty quick to go to like those basic ones, but if we can get deeper and go to the underlying emotions, like, oh, this is fear, but there's something like, what, be more specific, and I think could be a tool that is very powerful.
Yeah. I was actually given
Atlas of the Heart.
Atlas of the Heart.
I know, it's so good.
Yeah, just giving you basically just defining emotions. And if I'm like really needing to process something and it's, I don't know, like I'll just go in my room and open that book and like go through what I think I might be feeling and just reading it. Yeah, it's like, I think what you said, naming it, understanding it is really powerful.
That book is so good. I think it validates things in so many ways, right? If you're experiencing, there's some really fun emotions in there that I've never even heard of too. And I have it out of reach, so I'm not going to grab it. But when you read it, and like, if you're experiencing humility, actually her definition of humility is a thing that we don't necessarily experience a whole lot, but her definition of humility is one of my favorite. Like humble, she's like, humble is it's not trying to be right, it's trying to get things right. And just that little shift in her explaining that emotion has been really helpful for me, even like in my scripture study and things like that. But there's so many emotions listed in that book, and it's so validating and helps us to process them. That's a total side note, but I think it's really it's a great resource.
Yeah, and like there's so many emotions that I thought I knew, oh, that's what
Yes.
this is. And then I read it, I'm like, oh no, I'm actually experiencing this one. And it's
Yeah.
really interesting and totally I love what you said, like validating.
Yeah.
I've been really learning to do that, and I've it's really helped me like learn to validate my emotions. That's been a good thing for me.
Yeah.
And that book's been really helpful.
So I just am like, I just love to continually find those resources. So I love when people share things here and I'm like, oh yeah, I can remind. My goal this year is actually to read less books because last year I read so many books. There was so much going on in my brain. I'm like, I think
I
I
was gonna
should,
say
I
your
got to cut
brain
it back
is,
a little bit. Yeah.
yeah, exploding
Anyway,
with information. Yeah.
uh, by going through these steps, then what is the result that these missionaries are finding?
So I kind of want to look at the different categories. You know how I kind of broke it up into two
Yeah.
categories? I
Yeah.
think for the first category, those who are afraid of measuring up and, I've got to do this, this certain way. And I think for them, it's first of all, shifting from those negative emotions and kind of learning to conquer them and then create these emotions like self-confidence and motivation, but also living like an authentic life to them and not just trying to do what they think they need to be doing and what job they should do or school. Or I guess I fell into this category a little bit because I felt like I was supposed to get my education and I was going to do dental hygiene and I really wanted to do life coaching. That's what my dream was, but I put it off for like 3 years because it was like, no, this is what I need to do, and that's kind of what I was being told. And then I actually, well, and then I was going to do nursing and I actually applied to a nursing program, got in, and finally was like, no, this is not what I want to do. So I think for them, learning to like live an authentic life and living an authentic life to them and what they actually want to do and having the confidence to do that. And then for that other side is actually I think the same thing, conquering those negative emotions, generating these emotions like motivation and drive, and going for it and like getting the job that they want to have or just taking those steps. I think that's for me was a huge result. Like I finally was like, I'm going to take hold of my life and do what I want to do. And I don't need to be so afraid of and let fear like dictate what I do anymore. So yeah, I think that's kind of like the end result is you're living an authentic life to yourself and not allowing these negative emotions to dictate you anymore and what you do. And for me, it's been learning to be my own agent and act for myself, and not just have life happen to me anymore.
Yeah. I mean, that's ultimately what our heavenly parents want for us is to live our life so that people can find them through us. And if we're
Mhm.
not living our authentic self, there is certainly things that the world is missing, right? There's things here that
Yeah.
we're here for you and I to do, for us as an individual to do. And if we don't take the time to figure that out and follow our heart and learn how to do that, because I think that's a really hard thing to do is to learn to be you, then we're missing out and we're not I mean I don't know, I just think about that a lot, like we're here for a reason, and but we got to figure it out. We're part of
Mhm.
that process.
Yeah, and we all have something to contribute. I
Yeah.
love what you said about that. And I mean, I know I could do good as a nurse or dental hygienist, but this just yeah feels so much more authentic to me, and I feel like I'm able to reach people in a different way. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I love that.
So true. All right, if prospective missionaries, I'm thinking about them listening to this episode, how can they take these same skills that you're teaching here to return missionaries? How can they apply them to an upcoming mission? Like I said, like this is coming out at a time when there's a lot of missionaries that are probably getting ready to head out on missions. And what can they take from this?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is similar, right? Like steps I listed previously can apply to anyone at any time. But I would say, and what I wish I would have said to my younger self is give yourself so much grace and learn to validate yourself, because a mission is hard. It's not meant to be easy. It's, what's that saying? Nothing good in life comes easy.
Mm-hmm.
And really learn to validate yourself and to give yourself grace and understand that it is okay to struggle. I wish somebody would have told me that. I know one thing that missionaries do a lot, and maybe more so on a mission than even being home, is they can beat themselves up a lot and I'm not doing enough, and I think there's that pressure, especially when you're like, your whole purpose is to help others, and it's like, oh my gosh, I could be doing more in this area. I'm not helping so and so in the right way, and there's kind of that mantle can be heavy, but learning to give yourself grace. And then I always say, you don't have to do any of this alone. Like even these steps, I do focus on prayer a lot with clients, and like, you don't have to do these on your own. You can actually pray for the help to do this work. And I'm constantly praying, like, Heavenly Father, help me to process this emotion. This is a big emotion for me and I don't want to feel it. Like, we don't have to do any of it on our own, which is, I'm always grateful for that.
Yeah.
That knowledge.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we've always been taught that he's not going to give us more than we can handle, right? But I think there's a piece that we miss, that we leave out of that, and it is with him, right? If we partner with our heavenly parents, there's nothing we can't handle. They want us to succeed. Like, they're here trying to prove to us that we can be successful and live this authentic life. And so I love that you bring that up.
Yeah, that's always there. I think in anything I teach as a coach, like, you don't have to do any of these things alone. Like, these tools are amazing, and then you can even like pray for help in any of these areas. So it's just a great thing to remember. And like, I think one of my favorite things that I learned about in my mission was grace, and actually the enabling power of Christ. I like what you said. They want us to succeed, and so they're going to give us that help. So to remember that as a missionary is very important. And once again, lots of grace.
Well, we all need that, no matter where we are in our life.
So true.
Grace is the key. So, Brianna, thank you so much. This has been really enlightening for me and helpful, I know, for so many people to just bring awareness and a new perspective to missions and the adjustments that they can be. So thank you for taking the time to share with us today.
So happy to be here.
Before we go, can you share with people where they can connect with you?
Yes. I would say the LDS directory, you can book a free consult with me on there. And then my Instagram, Brianna Stewart Coaching, is the, what do they call it? The handle?
The handle, yeah.
The handle. And I'm creating a website right now, and that's not done, but those are the ways you can contact me.
Perfect. We'll link to those things in the show notes. People can find you. You're a great resource, and I'm so happy that people have this option. So thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great one, everybody, and we will see you again next time. Hey, we just wanted to thank you for spending part of your day here with us at Latter-day Life Coaches and being part of this conversation. Share this with your friends so that you can have a conversation with them on this topic as well. And as always, subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Have a good one, my friends.